You've been living inside a cycle for far too long. The same thoughts, the same choices, the same habits, the same excuses, and every single day that you repeat it, you reinforce it. You build the cage with your own hands and then convince yourself that it's unbreakable. But let me tell you something. Your future self, the version of you that has already tasted freedom, already lived out the life you were born for, is screaming right now, break that pattern. Patterns are powerful. They're invisible scripts that run your life without you even realizing it. They dictate how you wake up, how you respond to stress, how you deal with failure, how you approach opportunity. Most people aren't even making decisions. They're simply running the program of their past. And here's the truth: if nothing changes, nothing changes. If you keep doing what you've always done, you will keep living what you've always lived. Think about that for a second. Your future self isn't waiting to be created. It's already calling you. And that version of you, the one who is stronger, wealthier, healthier, more fulfilled, more courageous, is begging you to break the loop that's been holding you hostage. Because deep down, you already know the pattern. You already know the behavior. Maybe it's procrastination, maybe it's negative self-talk, maybe it's staying around people who drag you down instead of lift you up. Maybe it's comfort. Comfort feels safe, but comfort is the silent killer of potential. You've got to understand something. Patterns don't break themselves. They don't just dissolve because you wish them away. They shatter when you finally decide enough. They shatter when you take a stand against your own excuses. They shatter when you choose growth over safety, action over delay, courage over fear. You want a different life, then create a different rhythm, interrupt the cycle. Start with one powerful decision today. One action that declares to your future self, I heard you. I'm not ignoring you anymore, because every choice you make is casting a vote for the person you're becoming. Every small action either feeds the old pattern or fuels the new one. Your future self is not asking you politely. It's begging. It's saying, don't waste my potential. Don't sell me short. Don't trap me in mediocrity because you were too afraid to step into discomfort. That version of you has a life full of love, health, power, and impact, but only if you're willing to do the hard thing right now. So the question isn't whether you can break the pattern. You can. The question is whether you'll choose to. Whether you'll have the courage to disrupt the rhythm that's been stealing your power. Because if you don't, 5 years from now you'll look back and realize you traded greatness for comfort. But if you do, if you disrupt it, if you break it, if you create a new pattern, you won't even recognize the person you become. Patterns create your reality. Every single day, whether you are conscious of it or not, you are running on scripts that have been etched into your mind over years of repetition. You wake up and you follow the same rhythm, you think the same thoughts, you feel the same emotions, and you make the same choices. Then you look at your life and wonder why it feels stuck, why it feels predictable, why it feels like nothing ever changes. The answer is simple but uncomfortable. It's because you're living inside the same pattern. That pattern has built the life you see around you, and unless you disrupt it, you're destined to keep living the same story over and over again. It doesn't matter how much potential you have. It doesn't matter how many dreams you carry in your heart. If you don't break the loop you've been repeating, your potential will remain trapped. The truth is your patterns shape your destiny. If you've conditioned yourself to hesitate, you will hesitate when opportunity shows up. If you've conditioned yourself to procrastinate, you'll always delay the things that matter most. If you've conditioned yourself to doubt, your mind will feed you excuses every time you try to step forward. And here's the harsh reality. The universe doesn't respond to your intentions, it responds to your actions. It responds to the habits you put into motion, the rituals you choose every day, the patterns you reinforce with your energy and focus. Think about it like this. Every pattern you repeat is like carving grooves into the road of your life. The more you drive down the same path, the deeper the grooves become, until eventually it feels impossible to steer in a new direction. And most people, they give up right there. They tell themselves, this is just who I am, this is just how life is, not realizing that they've mistaken a repeated pattern for an identity, but you are not your patterns. You are not your excuses. You are not the loops that have kept you small. You are the force that can decide at any moment to carve a new path, to create a new reality, to rewrite the story of your life. But here's the catch. It doesn't happen with one burst of motivation. It happens when you become ruthless about noticing the patterns that are stealing your power. When you catch yourself reaching for the same excuse, the same fear, the same self-sabotage, you have to interrupt it. You have to replace it with something new, something that pulls you closer to the life you actually want. Because if you don't, you're not just repeating an old pattern, you're reinforcing it. You're making it stronger. You're hard-wiring it deeper into who you are becoming. Every breakthrough in life is born from the courage to challenge the old rhythm. It's about asking yourself, if I keep living this way, where will I be in 5 years? And if the answer doesn't inspire you, then you already know the pattern must be broken. You cannot wish your way into a new life. You cannot hope your way into a new future. You have to act. You have to shock your system with new behavior, new choices, new rituals that align with the person you want to become. And here's what's beautiful. The same way patterns can trap you, they can also liberate you. The same way negative repetition builds chains, empowering repetition builds wings. When you choose a new action consistently, you start to create new grooves in your life. You build momentum, you rewire your brain, and suddenly what once felt impossible begins to feel natural. What once felt like struggle starts to feel automatic. That's the power of shifting your patterns. It's not about one massive transformation overnight. It's about creating a new rhythm that lifts you higher every single day. Your reality is not some random accident. It's the reflection of the patterns you've allowed to dominate your life. If you don't like what you see, it's not a life problem, it's a pattern problem. And the moment you take ownership of that truth, you hold the key to creating something completely different. Because when you take control of your patterns, you take control of your reality. When you break the cycles that no longer serve you, you open the door to the future you've been dreaming of but haven't yet lived. And that future is waiting, but it's only waiting on one thing, for you to break the pattern today. Comfort is the silent killer. It feels good, it feels safe, it feels warm, but underneath the surface it is robbing you of everything you are capable of becoming. Most people don't even recognize it because it doesn't scream at you, it doesn't attack you, it doesn't announce itself. Comfort whispers. It lulls you into a rhythm that feels natural, but what it's really doing is keeping you trapped in the exact place you said you wanted to leave. Comfort convinces you that you can put off the work until tomorrow, that you don't need to push a little harder, that you can accept life exactly as it is. And while it keeps you still, time is moving, opportunities are passing, your potential is being wasted. Growth doesn't happen in the comfort zone. Transformation doesn't happen when everything is easy and predictable. Think back to every breakthrough you've had in life. It wasn't when things were simple. It was when you were challenged. It was when you were stretched, when you were uncomfortable, when you were forced to rise above what you thought you were capable of. That's the environment where strength is built, where resilience is forged, where courage is born. Yet most people run from that environment because they mistake discomfort as a sign they're failing, when in reality, it's the only place where they can succeed. Comfort seduces you into thinking you're living, but really you're just existing. You wake up, you go through the same motions, you repeat the same safe decisions, and at the end of the day you feel drained, not because you worked hard, but because you know deep down you didn't move forward. There's a part of you that knows you're meant for more, and every time you settle into comfort, that part of you grows restless. That's why comfort can never satisfy you. It can numb you, it can distract you, but it can't fulfill you. Fulfillment only comes when you're growing, when you're stretching, when you're doing the things that scare you but also make you alive. The trap of comfort is that it feels harmless. You tell yourself you'll make the change later, you'll take the risk when you're ready, you'll push harder when the timing is right. But the timing will never be perfect, and if you keep waiting, the habit of waiting becomes your new pattern. And years go by, decades even, until one day you look back and realize that all the dreams you once had were smothered under the weight of comfort. It didn't happen in a moment. It happened slowly, quietly, one excuse at a time. Discomfort is the birthplace of progress. It is the signal that you're doing something different, something that stretches you beyond who you were yesterday. It's the gym for your mind, your body, your spirit. Every time you lean into discomfort, you're training yourself to grow stronger, to expand, to adapt. And the more you do it, the more you crave it, because you start to realize that discomfort is not your enemy, it's your ally. It's the sign that you're moving forward, that you're alive, that you're no longer stuck in the cage of comfort that has been keeping you small. When you choose comfort over growth, you're not just standing still, you're moving backward. Because the world doesn't stop. Opportunities don't wait. Other people who are willing to embrace discomfort are moving ahead, and while they grow, you remain where you are. Comfort keeps you locked in the illusion of safety, but in reality, it's the riskiest choice you can make. Because the cost of comfort is your potential. The cost of comfort is the life you could have had, the person you could have become, the impact you could have made. The most dangerous place to be is not in struggle, it's in comfort. Because struggle wakes you up, it forces you to adapt, it makes you stronger. Comfort puts you to sleep. And while you're asleep, your future self is screaming at you, begging you to wake up, begging you to step out, begging you to embrace the discomfort that will unlock the life you've been dreaming about. Every great life is built on the foundation of discomfort. Every great leader, every great athlete, every great creator had to step beyond what was easy and embrace what was hard. So when you feel the pull of comfort, when you hear the voice telling you to take it easy, to stay safe, to wait until later, you have to recognize it for what it is. It is not your friend. It is not there to protect you. It is there to keep you ordinary, and you were not created to be ordinary. You were created to grow, to stretch, to expand, to live a life that excites you. And that life will never be found inside the walls of comfort. It will only be found when you have the courage to break free from it and step into the unknown where your true power is waiting. Your future self is calling, and the question is whether you will listen or keep silencing that voice with the same old habits and excuses. There is a version of you that already exists, a version that is stronger, more disciplined, more confident, more alive. That version of you is not some fantasy, it's not some distant dream. It's real, it's waiting, and it's begging you to stop repeating the cycles that keep you trapped in the same place. Every time you fall back into the pattern you already know is killing your momentum, you're not just hurting your present, you're betraying your future. That self, the one who is capable of so much more, is depending on you right now to make a new choice. You know the patterns you keep falling into. You don't need anyone to point them out because you feel them every single day. You know what happens when you procrastinate, when you scroll for hours instead of building, when you surround yourself with people who don't push you forward, when you tell yourself tomorrow will be the day. You've seen this cycle before, you've lived it, and every time you repeat it, you feel the weight of disappointment settle deeper because there's a part of you that knows you're meant for more. That part is your future self speaking to you, begging you to break free from the loop. Think about what it feels like when you imagine your best self. That person who wakes up with energy, who takes bold action, who doesn't shrink from challenges but leans into them, who has built the life you keep daydreaming about. That person isn't a stranger. That's you without the baggage of the old patterns. That's you without the excuses. That's you without the chains of hesitation and fear. And the reason you can imagine that version of yourself is because it already exists inside of you, waiting to be unleashed. But it won't come to life if you keep prioritizing comfort over progress, distraction over focus, fear over courage. Your future self is begging you not because it's impatient, but because it knows what's at stake. It knows that if you keep living in the same rhythm, years will pass and you'll look back with regret. Regret doesn't come from failure. Regret comes from knowing you could have done more, could have been more, but you stayed trapped in the cycle. Regret is the voice of the future self that you ignored. But if you choose differently, if you decide to listen to that voice and act on it, then gratitude replaces regret. The future, you will thank you for every sacrifice, for every moment you pushed through the discomfort, for every choice that pulled you away from the old patterns and closer to the life you deserve. Every time you feel that urge to fall back into the old behavior, you have to remind yourself that it's not just about today, it's about who you're becoming. The old self will tempt you because it's familiar, it's easy, it's predictable. But the old self can only give you what you've already had. The new self, the future self, is only unlocked through new choices, new actions, new standards. It's like standing at a fork in the road every single day. One road takes you back into the same cycle, the same disappointment, the same frustration. The other road is uncomfortable, uncertain, even scary. But it's the only road that leads to growth, fulfillment, and freedom. You have to start living with the awareness that your future self is watching every decision you make. When you choose discipline over distraction, you're honoring that future. When you choose courage over fear, you're aligning with that future. When you choose to stay stuck, to play small, to repeat the same pattern, you're stealing from that future. And that's why the voice feels so loud sometimes, because your future self doesn't want to be cheated out of the life you know you were built for. There is greatness inside you, but it's not guaranteed to come out. It only emerges when you choose to listen to that calling, when you break the patterns that no longer serve you, when you stop betraying your own potential. Your future self is not some distant fantasy. It's real, it's alive, and it's begging you right now to stop holding back, to stop giving in to the same old cycles, and to finally step into the person you were always meant to be. One decision can break the loop. That's all it takes, one defining moment where you finally draw a line in the sand and say never again. Too often we convince ourselves that change is complicated, that transformation requires endless steps and years of struggle. But the truth is every transformation in history began with a single decision. A decision to stop tolerating the old way of living. A decision to no longer accept mediocrity. A decision to rise up and disrupt the cycle that has been suffocating your potential. One decision doesn't solve everything instantly, but it shatters the illusion that you're powerless. It's the spark that sets fire to the old pattern and forces you to create something new. Think about it. Every time you've broken free from something in the past, it started with a decision. Maybe it was leaving behind an environment that no longer served you. Maybe it was walking away from toxic relationships. Maybe it was saying yes to an opportunity you were afraid of. The power of that decision didn't come from the circumstances around you. It came from you deciding in that moment that enough was enough. Decisions carry energy, and when you commit to one fully, you change the trajectory of your life. Without that moment of decision, nothing changes. With it, everything changes. The loop you've been stuck in only continues because you've allowed it to. The hesitation, the excuses, the procrastination, they all exist because you haven't truly decided. You've wished, you've hoped, you've said you wanted change, but wishing is not deciding. Hoping is not deciding. Deciding is final. Deciding means there's no going back. Deciding means you burn the ships. You eliminate the option of retreat. You commit to moving forward no matter how uncomfortable or difficult it becomes. When you reach that level of decision, the loop begins to crack. Most people are waiting for the perfect conditions before they decide. They want certainty, they want guarantees, they want to know the outcome before they take the leap. But life doesn't reward hesitation, it rewards boldness. The conditions will never be perfect, The timing will never feel ideal. The fear will never completely disappear. The moment of power is when you decide anyway, when you look at the fear and act in spite of it, when you accept uncertainty as the cost of growth. That's when everything begins to shift, because you've stopped waiting and started creating. One decision creates momentum. Momentum creates new behavior. New behavior creates new results. And those results reinforce the identity of a new you. But it all starts with that first choice. Without it, the cycle repeats itself indefinitely. You wake up tomorrow and it looks like yesterday. Next month feels like last month. 5 years from now looks exactly like today. That is the price of not deciding. That is the cost of allowing the loop to remain unbroken. When you truly decide, you don't need to know all the steps, you just need to take the first one. And that first step has a ripple effect. It changes your state, it changes your standards, it changes what you're willing to accept from yourself and from life. People think discipline comes first, but discipline is born out of decision. Once you decide that you're no longer willing to tolerate the old behavior, discipline becomes natural because the cost of going back becomes too high. There's a future waiting for you that looks nothing like the present, but you will never arrive there until you make the decision that sets everything in motion. That's the difference between the people who live extraordinary lives and those who stay stuck in cycles of regret. It's not talent, it's not luck, it's not circumstances, it's that at some point they decided. They didn't just want it, they didn't just talk about it, they didn't just imagine it. They made a choice so powerful that it redirected their life forever. So when you feel trapped in the loop, when you feel like the cycle has become too strong to escape, remember this: the loop has no power of its own. Its strength comes from your indecision. The moment you finally choose, truly choose, you strip the loop of its control. And in that instant, you prove to yourself that change is not only possible, it's inevitable when you decide with everything in you that the old pattern is dead and a new path begins now. Every action is a vote, whether you recognize it or not. Each small choice you make is casting a ballot for the person you are becoming. When you decide to wake up and hit snooze, that's a vote for the old self, the one who avoids responsibility. When you decide to get up and take control of your morning, that's a vote for the future self, the one who is disciplined and driven. One choice doesn't define you, but over time, the pattern of your choices creates your identity. You are either strengthening the cycle that keeps you stuck, or you are building the new pattern that unlocks the life you want. There is no neutral. Every moment, every decision, every action is shaping your destiny. Most people underestimate the power of small actions. They think transformation is about one huge leap, one massive breakthrough. But the truth is transformation is built one choice at a time. It's easy to dismiss the little things, to say skipping a workout doesn't matter, or delaying a task for one more day won't change much. But the reality is those little choices add up. They accumulate. They compound, and the person you become tomorrow is the sum of the actions you've repeated today. Just like water shapes stone over time, your actions are carving your identity day after day. The reason so many people stay stuck is because they keep feeding the old identity with their actions. They keep voting for the weaker version of themselves. They say they want success, but they take actions that reinforce mediocrity. They say they want health, but they take actions that reinforce neglect. They say they want confidence, but they take actions that reinforce doubt. What you do consistently matters far more than what you do occasionally. The vote you cast once doesn't hold the same weight as the votes you cast every single day. That's why discipline matters. It's not about being perfect. It's about creating a majority of votes that align with the person you want to become. Imagine your future self standing before you, keeping score. Every time you choose action over procrastination, that version of you gets closer. Every time you choose focus over distraction, that version of you gets clearer. Every time you choose courage over fear, that version of you becomes more real. But every time you fall back into the old loop, You're feeding the self you already know, the one who is tired, frustrated, and unfulfilled. And if you keep casting votes for that self, don't be surprised when your reality looks exactly the same a year from now, 5 years from now, even a decade from now. The beauty of this truth is that you don't have to change everything overnight. You don't need to win every single vote. You just need to start tipping the balance in favor of your future self. One action at a time, one choice at a time, one small step in the direction of growth. When you build momentum, it gets easier. When you accumulate enough votes for the stronger version of you, the old patterns lose their grip. The habits that once felt unnatural become automatic. The person you once dreamed of being becomes the person you are. Every action carries weight. Every decision matters. That's why you can't afford to dismiss the little things. The little things are the big things because they set the standard for who you are becoming. If you want to change your life, you don't need to wait for a miracle. You don't need to wait for motivation. You simply need to take ownership of the votes you're casting every day. Are you voting for the old self, or are you voting for the future self who is calling you to step up? The life you want is not built in one grand gesture. It's built in the small, seemingly insignificant moments when you decide to rise instead of retreat. Every time you make a choice, you're shaping your identity, you're building your future. You're aligning with or against the person you were created to be. And when you finally understand that every action is a vote, you realize that the power to transform your entire life has been in your hands all along.